Hi, this is Ryan, and I'll be honest, when I clicked buy on this thing, I was already half writing the video in my head about why $99 tablets are still mostly garbage in 2026. I had the bullet points ready: slow chip, dim screen, 2 updates and dead, the whole script. Then it showed up, and I'm holding it right now. It weighs less than a hardcover book. The display is bright enough to read in my kitchen at noon. I'll prove that in a minute because nobody believes me when I say it is. And here's the part that's annoying me in the best way possible. I just opened 5 apps in a row, and when I came back to the first one, it didn't reload. On a $99 tablet in 2026, that's not supposed to happen at this price. Not with what's printed on the box. So now I need to figure out, is this thing actually good across the board? Or is it good in one really narrow way that turns into a trap the second you try to use it like a real tablet? If you've ever stared at a $99 Amazon listing and wondered if it could possibly be real, hit subscribe, because we're going to figure that out together. Okay, before I tell you which tablet this is, and I will, I promise, let me rewind, because this video doesn't make sense without the context of what $99 has historically bought you. I've been buying budget tablets for about 10 years. Not because I love them, because someone in my family always needs one, and every time I think the segment has finally gotten good, I get reminded that good for $99 is a phrase doing a lot of heavy lifting. 3 years ago, the standard $99 tablet had 2 gigs of RAM, a chip with cores from 2012. Literally, the Cortex A53 came out in 2012. And a screen so dim that reading a recipe in a sunlit kitchen meant cupping your hand over the panel like you were lighting a cigarette in the wind. That was the baseline. That was normal.
And the worst part wasn't the specs. The worst part was the way these tablets aged. You'd buy one, it'd feel okay for about 6 months. And then somewhere around month 8, every app launch would start to take a beat too long. By month 18, the battery would hold maybe 2 hours of Netflix. By month 24, the manufacturer had quietly stopped sending updates, and your kid's tablet was now a security liability with a screen. So I've got opinions about this category, which is why what's sitting on my desk right now is messing with my head a little bit. Let me describe the unboxing, because honestly, the unboxing tells you most of what you need to know. The box is light. There's a USB-C cable on there, not micro USB, which, by the way, if you see a new tablet in 2026 still shipping with micro USB, that's old stock. Run away. There's a charging brick that's clearly the cheapest part of the package. And there's the tablet itself. First impression in the hand, it's plastic. Obviously it's plastic, but it's the good kind of plastic, the kind that doesn't creak when you grip the edges. I tried the press test, pushing on the back panel while watching the screen, and there's almost no color shift on the LCD, which means the panel is actually mounted properly. That's not nothing. I've held $250 tablets that fail this test. Powered it on, setup took maybe 4 minutes, connected to my Wi-Fi, and here's the first thing that surprised me. It asked me which 5 gigahertz band I wanted to use. Dual band Wi-Fi 5 at this price. 3 years ago, you'd have gotten a 2.4 gigahertz only chip that fights with your microwave for bandwidth.
Okay, I keep saying this tablet and not naming it. The one I've been testing is the Lenovo Tab M11, which I caught on sale for $129. The Lenovo runs flash deals that drop it to $99 a few times a year, which is the price point that makes this whole video make sense. The Samsung Galaxy Tab A9 sits in roughly the same neighborhood at $129 sale price, and it's an equally strong pick for slightly different reasons we'll get into. But I want to be specific because $99 tablet without a model name is the kind of vague claim that makes my skin crawl when other reviewers do it. Here's what's on paper. MediaTek Helio G88 chip, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, an 11-inch display at 1920 by 1200, which works out to about 213 pixels per inch, meaning text is genuinely readable, not the blurry mess you got from 1280 by 800 panels for years. 7,000 milliamp hour battery. Stylus included in the box, which, okay, I want to come back to that one in part 2 because the stylus is interesting in ways the marketing absolutely does not capture. What's the catch? Because there's always a catch. The Helio G88 still uses Cortex A55 cores, not the newer A76 cores you'd get in a $200 tablet. That matters less than you'd think for video and reading. It matters a lot if you're trying to play modern Android games at high settings. So if your kid wants to play Genshin Impact on this, they can, but it's going to look like Genshin Impact running on a budget tablet, which is to say, fine, but not the experience their friends have on iPads. The other catch is software updates. Lenovo's record on commitment is, let me put it this way, we'll see. You'll get one major Android version update, probably. Maybe two if you're lucky. Compare that to Samsung's Galaxy Tab A9, which comes with an explicit 4-year security patch commitment, and you start to see why the Samsung is the better buy for some people, even though the spec sheet looks slightly worse. And here's where I have to slow down because I almost glossed over something important.
The reason I was ready to dismiss this tablet was a real reason. It wasn't snobbery. It was that for the last 5 or 6 years, $99 tablets have lied. Not the brands, well, them too, but I mean the category has lied. The marketing always promised FHD streaming and fast multitasking, and what you got was a 480p Netflix experience and 3 apps fighting for 2 gigs of RAM. The disappointment was so consistent that I just assumed. What I'm realizing now is that something shifted in the last 12 to 18 months. The Helio G99 chip cascaded down from the $200 tier into the $130 tier. RAM floors moved from 2 gigs to 4. USB-C went from optional to standard. And the panels got dramatically better because LCD manufacturing is now so commoditized that a 1920 by 1200 IPS panel costs the same as a 1280 by 800 panel did 3 years ago. So here's what's at stake. If I'm right, the entire mental model of $99 tablets are disposable trash, which I have been operating under, which probably you have been operating under, is genuinely outdated. And there are millions of people about to spend $400 on an iPad who could spend $99 and be fine. If I'm wrong, there's a catch I haven't found yet, and we're about to find it together. Because in the next section, I'm going to push this thing in ways the marketing does not want me to push it. All right, so I spent the last 10 days actually using this thing, not benchmarking it, using it. There's a difference, and the difference is where most reviews fall apart. Here's the first thing that genuinely surprised me, and I want to be specific because vague praise is useless. I loaded 6 apps in a row: Chrome with 4 tabs, YouTube, Spotify, Kindle, the Gmail app, and a recipe site I had bookmarked. Then I went back to the first app I opened. It didn't reload. I went back to the second. Didn't reload. The third? Reloaded. So somewhere between 3 and 4 apps, it hits the RAM ceiling and starts dumping background processes. On a flagship iPad, that ceiling is probably 8 or 10 apps. On the $99 Fire tablets I tested 2 years ago, that ceiling was 2. 2 apps.
Going from 2 apps and thrash to roughly 4 apps and stable is the difference between a device that frustrates you every day and a device you stop noticing. And you stop noticing things that's actually the highest compliment I can give a piece of consumer tech. The good ones disappear. Now, here's where it gets weird. I ran the Netflix app, pulled up The Crown, which streams in HDR on devices that support it, and the picture looked fine, sharp. Better than I expected. So I went into Netflix's playback settings to confirm I was actually getting HD, and there it was, playing at 720p, not 1080p, on a 1920 by 1200 panel. Why? Because of something almost no review at this price point talks about called Widevine DRM levels. Netflix, Disney+, Max, all the streaming services use a copy protection system called Widevine. There are 3 tiers: L1, L2, L3. L1 is required for HD streaming. L3 caps you at 480p or 720p depending on the service. Most $99 tablets get L3. The Lenovo Tab M11 has L1 certification, but, and this is the part that bugged me, Lenovo's L1 negotiation is sometimes inconsistent, and on some accounts and some services, the device falls back to L3. I spent an hour in account settings, signed in and out twice, restarted the device, and finally got Netflix to negotiate L1 properly. It plays in 1080p now. But that hour was annoying, and a normal buyer would not have done that.
they would have watched 720p Netflix on an FHD tablet for the entire ownership period and never known why their content looks slightly soft. That is the kind of thing that doesn't show up in spec sheets. That's the kind of thing you only catch by using a thing. Okay, let me back up for a second because I want to talk about the screen separately from the streaming because they're two different stories. I took this tablet out to my back patio around 1 p.m., full sun, cupped my hand over it, read a Kindle book. The brightness, I measured it, I have a lux meter. The panel is hitting around 380 nits at max. That's actually readable in direct sunlight if you're not staring straight at the sky, which sounds like a low bar. It is a low bar, but 3 years ago at this price, you got 220 nits and a panel that turned into a mirror outdoors. So progress is progress even when the bar started underground.
The thing the brightness number does not tell you is the touch response. And this is the part where I caught myself almost giving the tablet too much credit. Because here's what I noticed. When I was scrolling Twitter, the panel felt fine. When I was typing a long email, the panel felt fine. But when I tried to draw with the included stylus, and the stylus, by the way, is a passive capacitive nub, not a pressure-sensitive active pen, despite the marketing photo showing someone clearly doing precise sketching, there's a lag between the pen tip and the line that follows it. I'd estimate around 90 to 110 milliseconds. On an iPad with an Apple Pencil, that lag is closer to 30 milliseconds. You can feel the difference. Your brain registers it as the pen swimming half a beat behind your hand. So if you're buying this tablet for note-taking or sketching, don't. I want to be really clear. The stylus is for tapping menus and maybe signing a PDF. It is not a creative tool. The marketing implies otherwise, and the marketing is lying. Here's the moment that broke my mental model, though. I was watching reviews of the Samsung Galaxy Tab A9, the $129 alternative I mentioned in part 1, to see how it stacked up. And I noticed something that almost nobody talks about, which is software update commitments. Lenovo will give the Tab M11 maybe one Android version, possibly two. The pattern across Lenovo's last 3 generations has been inconsistent. Sometimes a device gets an update 18 months in, sometimes it gets dropped after 8. Samsung's Galaxy Tab E9 ships with a written, published commitment to 4 years of security patches. That is, okay, I want to make sure I'm communicating how big this is. A tablet's useful life is determined less by its hardware than by whether the manufacturer keeps patching the software. A device with no security updates is a device you should not put on your home Wi-Fi by about year 2. So when I say Samsung commits to 4 years and Lenovo commits to we'll see, what I'm really saying is that the $129 Samsung is potentially a 4-year purchase, and the $129 Lenovo is potentially a 2-year purchase. Per year of ownership, the Samsung is cheaper, even though they cost the same on the receipt.
This is the part that genuinely surprised me. I was sure the Lenovo was the obvious winner because of the bigger screen and faster RAM, and I was half wrong. Because if you actually plan to use the tablet for more than 2 years, and most people do, even if they don't admit it, Samsung's the smarter buy. Here's the other thing that bugged me. I haven't tested either of these tablets long-term yet. I've had the Lenovo for 10 days, and I tested the Samsung at a friend's house, so grain of salt on the durability claims. But I read through about 3 years of verified Amazon reviews, weighting the long-term reviews 3 times as heavily as the under 30-day reviews, and the pattern is consistent. The Samsung shows up in 3-year reviews with people saying, still going strong. The Lenovo shows up in 3-year reviews with people saying, started slowing down around month 18. The Fire HD 10 shows up in 3-year reviews with people saying, battery swelled and pushed the screen out of the chassis. That last one is not metaphorical. Lithium batteries swell as they age. On glued-in tablet batteries, the swelling has nowhere to go, so it pushes against the screen. If you ever see your tablet's display lifting off the frame at the corners, stop using it. That's a fire risk, not a cosmetic issue. And that is weirdly the real story of the $99 tablet category. The hardware finally got good. The streaming finally works. The screens finally have enough pixels. But the aging of these devices, what they look like at month 30, that's still where the brands separate themselves. And nobody talks about month 30 in reviews because nobody has the patience to wait. Which leads me to a question I've been avoiding. If the hardware is finally this good at $99, what should you actually buy? Because there's a catch I've been sitting on yet. So here's the catch I've been sitting on.
While I was deep in spreadsheets comparing the Lenovo Tab M11 against the Samsung Galaxy Tab A9, I went down a rabbit hole that ended somewhere I did not expect. I checked Amazon Renewed for refurbished iPads.
And there's a refurbished iPad 9, the 10.2-inch one with the A13 chip, sitting around $139 to $159, depending on the day, sometimes lower. That's the catch. That's the thing that complicates the entire video. Because here's what an iPad 9 gives you that no $99 Android tablet can. Apple is still pushing iPad OS updates to that device. The A13 chip benchmarks roughly 2 to 3 times faster than the Helio G88, which, if you remember from part 2, is what actually determines how fast apps feel. The display is calibrated. The Apple Pencil works on it with proper pressure sensitivity, which means it's a real note-taking device, not a tablet pretending to be one. And Apple's ecosystem is going to keep that device functional for probably another 2 to 3 years from where we are now. So before I tell you what to buy, I want to be honest about something. If your real budget is $150, not $99, but $150, and you don't already live in the Amazon Prime ecosystem, the answer might just be a refurbished iPad. I know that's not the conclusion you came here for. I almost didn't include it. But if I'm telling you what I would do with my own money, I'd at least consider it. Okay, with that on the table, here's how I'd actually break this down. If it were my $99, strict $99, no flexibility, hard ceiling, I'd buy the Lenovo Tab M11 the next time it dropped to that sale price, which happens about 3 to 4 times a year. Prime Day, Black Friday, sometimes a random Tuesday in March. The reason is simple. At $99, you're getting a 2K-ish 90Hz display, 4 gigs of RAM, a battery that genuinely lasts 10 hours of streaming, USB-C charging, and Widevine L1 certification. Nothing else at that exact price comes close on hardware. The catch, and you know the catch by now, is this software update window. So treat it as a 2-year purchase. Don't expect 3.
If it were my $129, which is what most people end up actually spending because the sales aren't always running, I'd buy the Samsung Galaxy Tab A9. Smaller screen, 8.7 inches versus 11, slightly less aggressive specs, but 4 years of security patches, better, cleaner software, better long-term battery aging. Cost per year of ownership wins by a lot. If the tablet is for a parent, a kid, or anyone who's going to use it as a single-purpose device for years, this is the answer. If you're an Amazon household and your primary use is streaming Prime Video, reading on Kindle, and asking Alexa about the weather, get the Fire HD10 on sale at $99. I know I've been kind of harsh about Fire tablets in this video, but for that specific use case, the Fire HD10 is genuinely the lowest friction couch tablet you can buy. Everything is one tap away. The battery lasts forever. You won't fight it. Just don't expect to use the Google Play Store because there isn't one. And if you're the buyer I keep worrying about, the person who wants a cheap iPad for note-taking, drawing, or video calls, please consider the refurbished iPad 9 from Amazon Renewed. That's not me being a fanboy. That's me looking at 3 years of ownership cost and concluding that the iPad will outlive any $99 Android tablet by enough to justify the extra $50. What I would actively avoid, and I want to be specific here, not just wave my hands, is the entire off-brand segment. The Doogies, the Headwolves, the Blackviews, the Vast Kings. The listings will show you 16 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage and a 4K display for $69. The 16 gigs of RAM is 4 real gigs plus 12 gigs of virtual RAM, which is a swap file on slow eMMC storage. The 4K display is upscaled. The warranty is theoretical. Some units don't have valid FCC IDs. You're not getting a deal. You're getting a device that costs less because the corners that got cut are the corners you can't see until month 8. Here's the thing I've been turning over in my head all week, and I want to leave you with it because it's the actual point of this video.
The reason that $99 tablet on my desk feels illegal for the price isn't because $99 tablets got cheaper. It's because the baseline finally caught up to what people thought they were buying 10 years ago. We spent a decade buying tablets that promised smooth performance and vivid displays and fast multitasking, and getting devices that did none of those things. And now, finally, in 2026, the marketing claims and the actual experience have started to overlap. Not perfectly, but enough that a $99 tablet can be a real device instead of a frustrating compromise. That doesn't mean every $99 tablet is good. Most still aren't. The ones that are good, the Lenovo M11 on sale, the Samsung A9 on sale, the Fire HD10 on sale, share three things: Helio G88 or G99 silicon, 4 gigs of real RAM, and a panel above 350 nits with sRGB coverage worth talking about. If a listing doesn't hit all three of those, walk away, regardless of how good the price looks. And one last thing, because I think it matters. The improvement in this category is real, but it's fragile. Tariff changes, supply chain shifts, or one of the major brands deciding to retreat from the segment could push the floor right back down. So if you've been on the fence and one of these tablets goes on sale in the next couple of months, that's probably the window. I don't say that to create false urgency. I say it because the last decade taught me that good and cheap never lasts as long as you would expect it to. If you found this useful, especially the part about Widevine, because I genuinely think that's the single most overlooked spec in this category, subscribe. I'm working on a follow-up where I'm going to put the Lenovo M11, the Samsung A9, and the refurbished iPad 9 through a real 4-week stress test side by side, and I want to see which one is still feeling fast at the end. That video will go up when the testing's actually done, not before, so the subscribe button is the only way you'll catch it. Talk soon.